Welcome to HW Hockey.
What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Radio, episode 48 of season 6. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, joined as always by Jack Smith. And if you're watching us live on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and set an alert for future shows. And if you're listening as a podcast, please make sure you're listening and subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to get notifications for future episodes the minute we upload them. We have a topic-filled episode for you boys and girls on this Tuesday afternoon special episode. It's only special because we're doing it on a Tuesday afternoon. There's really nothing special about the episode. But as always in Flyers land, there is relevant news to talk about, and we'll get to that. You might have heard by now there was a goalie that the Flyers are having trouble with. The franchise is just cursed when it comes to goalies, Jack, isn't it?
It is absolutely silly at this point. But like you said, I mean, it is August, and we had a little bit of a slow show 2 weeks ago. We took the week off last week, and boom, we're hit with several pieces of news, and it is unwavering, and I appreciate it from a content creator for the Flyers.
It is. And so there was more big news last week, and fans of Philly, you guys may have heard of them. If you've watched our show, if you've been on their trips, they pulled a pretty big get for one of their road trips, and we'll get to that later on in the show. But before we get going here, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you guys about fans of Philly, just in case you hadn't heard about them yet. And I have a little banner here somewhere for them. Here you go. Fans of Philly. Flyers fans, are you ready to take your game day experience to the next level? Look no further than Fans of Philly. With over 14 years of experience, they have been the go-to for organizing unforgettable travel packages for Philadelphia sports fans. Why choose Fans of Philly? Let's break it down. They've spent years building top-notch relationships with bars, hotels, teams, transportation companies, and more. Every trip is a learning experience, making one better than the last. You can trust their travel packages will exceed your expectations. And if you're wondering if they're knowledgeable, you bet. They've scoped out the best hotels, explored the nightlife, and have found prime spots in arenas and stadiums to watch games. They know all the ins and outs to ensure you have a blast on your trip. Their dedication doesn't just stop at their love for Philly sports teams. It extends to you, the travelers. They're committed to going above and beyond to make sure your trip is nothing short of amazing. Meeting new people and sharing the excitement is what we live for. Go to fansofphilly.com, guys, and book your next trip. Like I said, they booked a pretty big guest. You guys may have heard of him. We'll tell you about that later in the show. He's going to be accompanying the Fans of Philly crew, and you could be a part of that crew, to Salt Lake City, Utah, later on in the season when the Flyers play the new Utah Hockey Club. So, okay, Jack, let's get to let me take the banner off the screen real quick here so you guys can see our beautiful faces. I'm sure you're all disappointed. Where the hell is the thing? All right, here we go.
I was going to say,
fansofphilly.com. Make sure you guys go check out the site while you listen to the episode here. So, comments. Vegas, whoa. In on the dot. LFG. Someone tell that kid the AHL is a pro schedule versus the KHL. And okay, so let's get into it. Obviously, we're talking about Alexei Kolosov. And I'm sure by now, most of you have listened to the Nasty Knuckles podcast with Danny Brier. I think that aired yesterday. Very good episode. But the major topic of conversation, the most relevant in my opinion, was the Kolosov news. And Brier talked about it pretty candidly, I thought, Jack. And he mentioned, things, or at least the way Brier was talking about the situation, to me didn't sound very positive. He was talking about it in almost the same way he was talking about Cutter Gauthier, where they're doing all they can kind of thing, and they're not really in communication with the player. He mentioned there is language barrier, so it's not like they can just pick up their phone and talk to the kid. You know what I mean? Kolosov switched agents just a few days ago, which is significant. I thought what was interesting, the quote that really stuck out to me during that, Jack, and I want to get your kind of stance on this. Briere made a point to say that if Kolosov wants to play hockey next season, it's going to have to be with the Flyers organization. And to me, that was him sort of taking the hard stance, right? Where you can stay over in Russia, but you're under contract with us. and you're not playing for any other team but us. You signed the contract. Now let's go. Put your big boy pants on and get over here and play. What are your thoughts on that, Jack?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about as well. Let me bring up the actual quotes, little paragraph here, because it just kind of lays everything out for you. This is according to Flyers Nitty Gritty. We had people checking on him every day. He's shy. He didn't speak a lot of English going into the season. We wanted to help him out and put him in the best possible position, to succeed. We are hearing all these rumors. We haven't had a full or clear answer to this point. But if he wants to play hockey, he has to come over here. He's under contract with the Flyers. He's not allowed to play anywhere else. We want him here. So we will see. In our mind, he has to report. That's what he said. So I think, like you were alluding to, Jim, that's pretty telling. It's not letting a kid have his way in a sense. Now, you could argue what's the worst that could happen, let him go back for another year, whatnot. To me, there are several parameters on this. One, what's with these players, these kids now? And Kolosov situation is a little different, but almost being bigger than the organization and where they're kind of like demanding their way. It's easy to say he's a goalie. They take a long time to develop anyway. Just let him go over there. Well, who's to say he's going to come back next year? Who's to say? Now they're paying him. They're really paying him now. He's under contract. He's an adult. Like, some of this stuff is very confusing to me, but I guess it is what it is. I'm glad he's taking a hard stance to it. How long are we going to play this game? You know, you want to play in the NHL? You signed a contract. We already have been dealing. It's not like they're just, you need to report here and be here like all the jobs we have. You know, like, just be here. They're like bending over backwards. Look what they did for Michkov, his mother, his brother. They're talking about bringing Kolosov's girlfriend over. I'm sure there's more they could do. You know, it's Comcast. We pretty much print money. There's plenty of stuff we can do. This organization has all the different scouts and 3 assistant GMs and, 900 special advisors to the advisor to the GM. They could do whatever they needed to do financially to make this kid's life a lot easier. And I'm not even saying they didn't offer that. It just seems like he's he's changing agents. He's not here yet. We don't have a definitive answer. With each passing day, it sounds like it's a no. It's like, Jesus, man, like, you can't play this game. You have to grow up at some point. Ultimately, I don't know what'll happen, but I am glad he's taking the hard stance. Like, it's people's dreams to play in the NHL. Look at Danny Brier. Since he was drafted, undersized guy, was told he'll probably never make it. Scratch and claw to make it. Like, it's his dream. And I got these guys who are highly touted who are playing. I miss my mommy. I miss my home cooking. I miss my home. And I understand I'm very old school, so I come off like I'm roasting the kid, and I am a little bit. But, like, on top of that, they're offering you all these different ways they'll make it work for you. And we're still here with we don't know what's going to happen. It's very irritating. And I'm at a point now, I get it. I don't want to see them lose another prospect. I understand it looks bad, but I cannot stand when players or prospects really, but same goes for players too, make themselves bigger than the organization. That is definitely more true in Cutter's situation than it is Kolosov's. But I just can't help but say, dude, like, come on, like, grow up. Like, maybe it is a real issue, like a serious issue. We going to live it in home forever? Like, to me, it's irritating. It's silly. I'm glad they took a hard stance on it, and we'll see what happens.
I have breaking news, Jack. Sorry. And we're going to talk more Kolosov, but Flyers have just announced they've placed forward Ryan Johansson on unconditional waivers today for the purpose of terminating his contract due to a material breach.
That means we're out of it, right?
I think.
Oh.
I think that's what that means. I can pop onto Puckpedia real quick. But
now we can go get Line A. Let
me see what that means real quick here for the Flyers. So this is a pretty interesting development here.
I'll look up the definition of material breach.
Yeah. So Puckpedia is not updated yet, as that just literally came out. He was he with the Flyers or was he with the Phantoms? All right. Well, as more comes out about this,
so real quick, I got this is a rough definition of material breach. Material breach of contract occurs when one party to a contract fails to fulfill their obligation or fails to do so in a timely manner, and the other party receives a significant different or less beneficial result than it was specified in the contract. This can include failing to meet all or part of an obligation or failing to do so in time. That to me screams it's on Johansson's part, obviously. So maybe they just found a way to get out of that contract, which would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that opens up about $4 million in cap space. So huge.
Was it 4 or 5? I can't remember what he's making.
I think
but it's up there.
Yeah, it's 4. It's definitely one of those. So that's a huge chunk that opens up. He was going to be on the books for this year. Too soon, Jack. Chuck knew. What was that in reference to?
Chuck knows everything. That's all.
So there you have it. And I was kind of wondering what was going to happen with that situation. Johansson was kind of being, for lack of a better word, a prick with all of this, right? I know that there's something between Tortorella and Johansson, but this was likely the only outcome. And I just wonder if the Flyers knew that they had this trump card in their back pocket the entire time, and they were trying to get him. They were trying to entice him to give things a shot, and the Flyers have wingers, so you could stick a guy like Johansson out there who can distribute the puck. Maybe it boosts his stats a bit and they move him at the deadline, but I guess he just wanted nothing to do with Tortorella. And for those who may not know by now, I think he played with Torts down in Columbus and they butted heads. I think that's why Johansson ended up being moved. So you guys can go read up about that. I don't know the specific deets, but that's the situation. Tortorella's here. They traded or they didn't trade for him, but they got Johansson in the cap dump from Colorado in the Walker deal, and he all of a sudden was hurt. And apparently that's not true. So they were able to void his contract, which is great.
Fantastic.
Right?
Fantastic. One less issue. All for it.
Yeah, so we'll see what they do with that cap space. Hopefully they don't burn it up too quick. But yeah, certainly some positive news. And now we can get back to Kolosov.
Back to the negative.
Back to the negative.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's. This is my feel on this, Jack. I don't think this kid's coming over, and I don't know if he ever. I would assume that he's smart enough to know, like the Flyers gave him a plan. I would assume that they've communicated with him, right? Like, hey, we're going to bring you over, give you a little taste of North America, taste of Allentown, what it's like to be, in the organization. You can go home, come back, and we'll put the plan in place. You get your feet wet in the AHL, get 40, 50 games under you, and we bring you up, in 2025. 2026, something like that. I just can't imagine that. I don't know. Maybe it was the Fedotov contract. Maybe that pissed him off. What did Fedotov ever do to make $3 million? Kolosov is the better goalie. Why is he playing in the AHL and Fedotov's making $6 million over 2 years? Like one thing we have to remember, and we've seen it a lot more recently, like kids are stupid. And if they don't have smart people advising them, they're going to make stupid decisions. And so I was on a show last night, which I produce for now. So I'm going to be on that show more regularly, the Dobber Prospects Report. And Kolosov came up. And for Russian players or European players, I'm not sure that they grow up with the dream of lifting the Stanley Cup one day. I mean, maybe, some players do. Evgeny Malkin, apparently Michkov, to name a few, Ovechkin. But a lot of them grow up watching their leagues. And they dream about winning their trophies and whatnot. And, maybe Kolosov is one of those guys where he came over and he's like, yeah, this is not all I imagined it to be. I would rather be home. So I'll sign the stupid contract. They can pay me, their money, and I'll go back to Russia. So he's trying to dictate his own. Once you sign a contract, man, that's kind of it. Like you need to honor that. That's my opinion. You need to honor your commitment. And some guys don't. And that looks like what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's an adult. He signed the contract. Come play. It's the end of it. It's the long and short of it. Like, enough of this, crybaby bullshit. Like, I can't stand that it all comes back on Briere. Maybe I understand logistically how it looks, but I'm always a guy who says take everything in and understand the context of each situation separately. And just because Gauthier is a piece of shit, like, I'm not gonna like, oh, it's more likely Briere is at fault here for Kolosov. When the issues at hand we're talking about are homesick. Like, what could another team done better? So I'm not there yet until maybe more stuff comes out and we get the full scope. I don't know what that could be. You mentioned the Fedotov thing. If that's the case, that irks me as well. Isn't he 22, 23 years old? Fedotov's almost 28. The idea that I understood, the trajectory of the goaltending situation this year was going to be Ersan and Fedotov. And then next year, it would be those two as well. But then Kolosov, after a year, just one freaking year with the Phantoms, we're going to see if he can push to be in the mix, whether he take over as backup or whatnot. I mean, it's 1 year. You're young. You're a goalie, so what does that matter? It's 2 years Fedotov signed. It's like your biggest obstacle was Carter Hart. He's gone. It is free reign for the starting goalie of the NHL Flyers. Like, come on. Like, it's just... If, like you said, if he's got stupid people advising him, that was definitely something very stupid. Not to mention, he signs his ELC. How much is that worth compared if he, hits the NHL and signs a contract? Then you're set. So, I mean, at least for a large chunk of your life. But I don't know. That's why I don't think it's much of that. I think it's more the homesick thing, the language barrier, things of that nature. Things going into your draft here at the very least. So it could be a culture shock, but to not give it a second chance now that it's like been known what your issues are, what you're going through, and we're saying we'll bring your girlfriend over, we'll do this, we'll do that. Give it a real chance. Come be with the team in training camp and preseason. Bonds with the team, the players, the coaches, even the fans. And then maybe things will be different. Like, give it a real shot. To not even be interested in that, I'm just so tired of us drafting little boys. What happened to the men? Like, what? I understand they're young, but like, still, like, come on, man. Like, the kids go to college like across country. I mean, I understand it's the same country, but that's just to go to college. You're putting yourself in debt. You're not making a chance to make millions of dollars. That's the key difference. If you told me I got to go to Russia for a couple of years and I could essentially make, like, by the time it's over, like over $1 million, you're telling me you wouldn't do that shit? Like, come on, man. Like, it blows my mind. I don't know. I'll never get over it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to roast him. Oh, he's a kid. Wah. I'm not doing it. I won't do it. I'm too old school. It's an honor and a privilege to play in this league. It's a dream come true for so many different players. Other people's dreams fall short. So to be like this is just like it's just the kids today. These kids today, Jim, like, oh my God, a bunch of pansies.
Yeah, I just, I think when you're in that, maybe you don't understand the opportunity that you have. And let's say it actually is the homesickness and stuff like that, which, is it's an actual thing. Like, if I try to put myself in his shoes and I'm in a totally different country, seemingly alone, right? Because can't really talk to anybody. They mentioned he's a shy kid, but how much of that is him not being able to communicate with anybody? Like, you can't understand what people are saying. How do you know that he's shy? You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Look, the Flyers do things, we assume, the right way. And if they weren't in the past, you can bet your bottom dollar that they are making sure they're doing that now, because they want Philadelphia to be a desirable place to play. So I would assume that they handled this situation correctly. Like, this is the goalie of the future. Like, Kolosov is the goalie, the number one goalie in the system right now. So I don't think that they're doing anything to try to piss him off. But I'm also not sure if you need to hold a guy's hand. Yeah, I would like to think it's just as simple as homesickness, I think we always assume, both sides always have the best intentions at heart, you know. But sometimes it's maybe more complicated, and who knows, maybe we'll never find out. So, but that's the situation. And Jack, if I had to ask you today, does Kolosov ever play a game for the Flyers?
I don't think so. I think if they cave, which is a thing, a precedent I don't think they want to set. I think that's why I'm behind Brier saying, like, technically you can't play anywhere else but here. Sign a contract, be an adult. Because of that, and I don't think they're going to let him go back. I think there's going to be some kind of rift, and I just don't see it. I don't know what they're going to do, but I don't see him making his way over here, especially if it's next year. I mean, I guess there's a small chance, but like, how much do you have to cater to a guy? I understand we like him as a prospect, but it's not like he's Askarov, yeah. But it just is what it is. And see, this is the stuff. See, this Eric Schmidt here. Now, the way I read that, is he blaming the organization? Because
it's hard to tell sarcasm. Just judging by his second comment, I'm going to say that's sarcasm.
Hold on, here's the second follow-up question. Danny, in 18 months, 2 prospects wanting out, 1 vet refuses to come here and trade, pass on buying miscellaneous. This is a okay. Half of that stuff's not Danny's fault, but
when Tom brought that up in the chat yesterday, because I haven't seen any anti-Danny. I mean, there's one account on Twitter that just might have a personal problem with Brier, but I haven't seen too many Danny bashers on Twitter. And
more so
when Eric's not a fan.
Which is fine, because like I had just said before, offseason was a little underwhelming for me, but it is what it is. But that's about as far as I go. This is where context is key. If you just read it on its whole, 2 prospects wanted out, that makes the GM and the front office look bad. If you look into the actual, what happened in those situations with those players, then you can make it, informed decision. To me, legit 2 players wanted out. Look at each situation. You're gonna tell me Cutter's the good guy in that situation, unless something's being hidden that we don't know. He looks like a complete asshole. Like this shit didn't happen like 20 years ago. Like, players were grateful to make it to the NHL and play in the NHL. It was a privilege. You had to put in some hard work to get there too. These 22-year-old kids just, I want everything. I want to be there. Like, come on. Like, you're going to, especially this situation. If the kid's legitimately homesick, how the hell is that Danny Brier's fault? That doesn't make any sense to me. What could he have done differently? What could any GM have done differently? Not have him come over at the end of last year? That's like common practice. Like, who doesn't do that? That's just silly. If you think there's more going on to the Cutter situation, fine. I can understand that to somewhat of a degree. I still think the guy's a complete asshole, but it is what it is. They're all entitled. These are the kids coming out now. This is what we get. And there's more and more of them pulling this shit. Before it was vets or other guys, but now it's kids who've never even stepped on the ice yet. NHL ice. This guy hasn't stepped on it. Well, I guess he did step on AHL ice, but barely. That's the stuff that irks me. As far as the rest of this, vets refusing to come here in a trade. Who's he referring to? Like, it happens all the time in the NHL. Oh, he's talking about the guy from the Blues. Who are we trying to get in the offseason? The defenseman. Corey Krug. And the reason he didn't want to come here is because he didn't want to get traded again. That came out. In the beginning of the season, the Sam Hine deal with the first for Torrey Krug that fell through. Torrey Krug nixed the deal. It's not because he didn't want to come to Philly. It's because he didn't want to get traded again. He's come out and said that. He wanted to stay in some place. These guys are older. They have families.
Yeah, he signed a no trade clause. And
yeah, he just used it because he didn't want to they told him they were going to move him at the deadline, which is what a rebuilding team does. And they wanted him to play with the other defensemen, but he didn't want to get moved again. It's not because he didn't like the organization or anything like that. This is where context is key. On top, things look bad, but when you look into it, you can see why things happen. And we didn't know that in September. I'll give you that, or whenever the deal almost happened. But now we know it's not. You're putting way too much on Danny. And I know this organization has gone through some shit. But yes, Vegas. This just came out. He did have some kind of injury. But yeah, it's so easy. Yeah, so easy to put everything on the GM. And I know we were so quick to do that with the previous front office, but the previous front office and the one before that had failed us for like almost 10 years. Like Danny's come in, got you Michkov, got two firsts technically for Provorov. If you want to say, okay, well, I don't think he's great, that's fine because of how things have gone with the Cutter situation. At least you got your Drysdale out of that and a second round pick. We'll see ultimately what happens there. I've liked the draft so far. I don't think he's the greatest or anything like that, but who the hell knows? We'll see. We have 3 first round picks going into next year. Like when we have assets to move.
So that's Danny's job. I just want to reiterate again, like with drafts, it's Jack, what's his name? Who's the guy that is actually drafting the players?
Brent Flair.
Like, can we please? Obviously, Danny's responsible, but when it comes to drafts, he's leaving it to Brent Flair and the scouts. So, like, let's remember that kind of stuff. Flair was the guy that was drafting under Fletcher. So, like, Fletcher should, and that's what we do. We give credit to the GM, right? But, like, come on, can we stop saying, oh, Briere picked this guy over this guy? Flair had his guy, and Briere, like a good general manager, trusts Flair, who is in charge of drafting, to, hey, if you believe in this guy, I trust you because that's why you have your position. Go draft that guy. And they got an extra pick on top of it. Look, that night, like I'm just remembering back, would it have been nice to have drafted Bouillon? Sure. Like Jack, like I watched Bouillon all year long. Really like Bouillon. Does a lot of things very well. Nothing extremely great. He's not going to be a star in the NHL. He's going to be a very good second line defenseman. And that's not a knock. People hate when I say that. For whatever reason, it rubs people the wrong way when I call guys very good second pair. Cam York, very good second pair guy. People are going to get pissed off, right? But it's it's what I think, right? Consta Helenius. Tell me why you're upset that they passed on Helenius. What do you like about Helenius? What do you like about him? Please tell me. What don't you like about Jet Luchenko? What have you watched that you don't like? He's going to be an excellent player. He's only 17.
Just to piggyback off of that, it would have been really nice to draft Cole Caulfield, but Cam York's pretty good, and he's a much more position in need. And I don't even know where Caulfield is right now. We'll see. So that's the only time you're going to get me to say that. But the point is,
these are the points.
Time will tell.
What do you want him to do on this stuff? Like with the prospects, like what do you want him to do?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to figure out. Like, yeah, it's happening under Briere, but what do you want him to do? Goalie charged with sexual assault. What do you want him to do about that?
That's not on him at all.
What do you want him to do?
That's just silly.
If he could have done anything, he could have been more prepared for last season, right? Well, he tried to be. Just so happened that Peterson, what the hell's his first name, Jack? Cal Peterson literally can't stop a puck. He got him back in the deal for Provorov, and he stunk.
And Walker. I mean, you do that. Rebuilding teams do that. You take on bad contracts. He can't stop the puck. That's why it's a bad contract. That's why you got what you got back in that deal.
So my point is he tried to prepare himself because it was the worst kept secret. Something was going to happen with Carter Hart last year. Tried to cover his ass, right? Cal Peterson comes in. Sam Erson's in.
They drafted 2 goalies.
Fedotov. I mean, what do you want him to do about Fedotov? You got Fedotov over here, right?
And to answer this question real quick, do you hear anything about Kolosov wanting NHL time right away? Like, for me, it's all homesick stuff. He's too young. Cutter, it's a different story. Cutter's still coming into the NHL at the same time he would have here. So that's just idiotic from his perspective. But like, now, Fedotov's 28 years old. You have to see what you have in the guy. And Kolosov's a young pup. He's a prospect. Him is just acclimating himself to the American lifestyle if he's going to be here. Just because you're good in the KHL for a couple of years, you don't just get NHL starting time. Like, you could really ruin a player's development doing that too.
Well, so in my opinion, the KHL is a better league than the AHL. Just from watching, there's pro players, there's very good players. The AHL is a different style of hockey, right? It's slower. There's less skill guys. There's career AHLers playing down there who, not very good. And then they make things tougher for the better players. It's just a different league in the AHL. The KHL, I don't want to say it's similar to the NHL, but there's more skill. And remember, what these very good Russian players are being told is if you're not going over to directly play in the NHL, you're better off staying here to play in the KHL. That's what they're being told by people that they, assume that they can trust.
But you signed a contract with the Flyers.
Yeah, doesn't matter, I guess, right?
And
they're not telling them, hey, go do things in good faith. It's, hey, do what's best for you.
Yeah, I mean, and that stuff, that's where I draw the line. That's where I'm like, you made a decision as an adult. You're going to get paid pretty handsomely for your age, and this is the route. This is the route everybody's taking to the NHL, to make it. Fedotov's a completely unique situation. And I think a part of that was getting Michkov over. That's why he got the money he got. Wasn't it the same agent? Correct me if I'm wrong. He's making what he would have made over there. It's only 2 years. You tell me this guy can't come over and play for the Phantoms for 1 year. Our organization gets a first look at him, and then boom, he's in the mix the next season. Like, he's only 23 years old. Like, most goalies don't even come up until they're a couple of years older than that, if not later. Like, I don't know. To me, it just pushes that entitled crap, if that's the case. I truly believe the kid is homesick. I don't think he's playing games. I really think he's homesick. It's still kind of silly to me. Step outside your comfort zone like most adults do. Do what you got to do. But again, if you, like you're saying, he's growing up watching his league and is completely happy just staying there. I think he took the Flyers for a ride. I think that's in bad faith completely. And he should be bad mouthed for that, roasted, but I don't know that for a fact yet. And it is what it is. So, but again, that brings us to our, because we've really drilled into this Kolosov stuff. There was, in my opinion, some false information out there. It's very easy to hate on Brier. I'm not saying you need to love him, but don't say he's Hextall or Fletcher either. Come on. We were 2 years ago, we were at a very bad place as an organization, very bad place. Brier has taken over, and the future is friggin' bright already. Maybe it's not as bright as you hoped it be. Maybe it's not coming along as fast as you would like. We sure as hell could use a number one center. The Gauthier thing really sucks, but ultimately things are significantly better than they were 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So I'm not going to say he's the greatest, but I'm not going to say he's Hextall Fletcher either, especially after how long has he been GM? A year and a couple of months? Like, come on. It's just silly. And we got 3 first-round picks going into a pretty damn good draft. And this season hasn't even started yet. We could definitely acquire more, do more, get more. Lord knows what's going to happen. Like, just pump the brakes. Holy shit. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the Briere stuff. I don't get it. So this is what it's like to me. It's like when you watch the news and it's like negative stuff constantly.
Yeah.
And then all you do is regurgitate it. It's like, oh God, this guy let it happen again. It's like, wait a second. Like, what did you want him to do about that?
The other thing is, Jim, and you're right, but there's another part to this. And I got to give him credit. Charlie O'Connor said this, and I actually, it hit me. I was like, he's 100% right. Being a constant hater of the Flyers, no matter what, or any sports team for that matter, is a coward's way to be a fan. Why? Because if they're bad, you were right. If they're good, well, who cares? They're good. So constantly being negative and shitting on everything, you can't lose, which is a coward's way out. So you see a lot of that stuff. Now, I'm not saying people who commented, that's your way, but I'm saying ultimately people who are continuously bashing Briere, putting things on him that we know weren't him. Like, Hart, like, come on. Like that, when was that kid? 2016? That was the World Juniors, or 2018 rather? I was confused with his draft year. That happened back in 2018. Like, Briere was what then?
Yeah.
I think Hextall was still here. Like, come on. Like, you can't put that on him. What's he supposed to do? So that's just compiling to make it look worse than it is. So yeah, I just,
doesn't make sense to me. And that's the only reason I get like, come on, what are we doing here? Because it doesn't make sense.
Well,
like, don't get me wrong. If there's a reason, and so I gave Chuck Fletcher a lot of leeway, right? Like, you remember, Jack, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't really his fault that they traded for Ryan Ellis and it blew up in their face, or a lot of things, in my opinion, at the time weren't his fault. They were just bad breaks, where I started to turn, where it was like, okay, he traded for Risto, saw what he was. You have an opportunity to trade him at the deadline, get rid of that. You don't have to sign him. Instead, he doubled down, and that's when it's like, okay, now he's compiling mistakes. He's
doubling down,
compounding them. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess for myself, I do give guys some leeway because you're not going to fix things in a year. You're not going to fix them in 2, right? And I don't know if it's to appease fans, but they are using the word rebuild, and the roster looks pretty, in my opinion, pretty damn good right now. The defense could use some work still, but overall, the team looks good on paper. We're going to get a season with Urson, as the clear, I assume, the clear-cut starting goalie. But Otov has, his legs under him, his pads are broken in, or whatever the hell people are saying. So there's a plan in goal, and there's not going to be hopefully no one's going to be kicked off the team halfway through the year for any reason. So in my opinion, the things look bright at the NHL level. They drafted a nice center prospect in Luchenko. Michkov's coming over. Don't get me wrong. It's not all rainbows and butterflies, but there's a lot of positive things that, in my opinion, outweigh the stupid stuff, right? Like this Kolosov thing. It sucks. Excuse me. It sucks, but I'm not losing. If you don't want to be here, that's fine. We don't want you here. That's all.
That's what we've been saying. Just real quick before we move on to Askarov, because people have asked a couple times in the chat, update on Johansson, because it happened as we were started our podcast here. They placed him on unconditional waivers today with the purpose of terminating his contract due to a material breach. Flyers did not have a comment at that time. Basically, when we read the definition of material breach, somebody, most likely Johansson, did not fulfill their obligation to the contract, whether in whole or part, which led to them terminating the contract, which means that is not a buyout. He is just gone. The contract is torn up. That's about roughly $4 million in cap space the Flyers will get, unless some other report comes out and says they can't do that. But it's good news. No matter how you slice it, good news. Don't have to worry about Johansson. He's probably lying about his injury or couldn't prove it, so they just said, yeah, you're not filling your obligations. I'm obviously speculating here, but you were not up to your obligations. We're going to terminate the contract, and we'll see if he fights it and we'll see what happens. But as it looks today, he's no longer a part of the organization. $4 million has opened up.
Yeah, significant. And so, speaking of cap space and potential moves and Russian goalies not wanting to play for their NHL teams, Snickers 10, how about the young goalie from the Preds that could be there? Could there be a trade there for the Flyers? And put out a tweet yesterday. Flyers should at least kick the tires. I know that they really like Sam Ersson. I really like Sam Ersson. I think he's the goalie that we saw for most of the year and not towards the end of the year when he was burned out. Flyers have come out and said, hey, that was our fault last year with Ersson. I'm fine with giving Fedotov a shot. He's here. He's signed for 2 years. But you have an opportunity to get a guy like Askarov, and you should at least be kicking the tires. Flyers have a lot of assets. I know that they need a top center still, so we don't want to give up too much. But kick the tires, right? The Flyers have a lot of young D, and they can't fit all 6. There's not going to be 6 guys all coming up on this roster. So, I don't know. They have a lot of picks. They have a lot of young D. They're losing Kolosov. They lost Carter Hart. Or do they believe in Sam Ersson 100%? Fedotov, in my opinion, is going to play out his contract, and that's going to be the end of Fedotov, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
So, I'm thinking kick the tires, Jack, right?
You're a rebuilding team that you have to. Look, you don't trade the farm for the guy, but you have to see what the ask is, what he's interested in, and I've seen a lot of more Russian or more players demanding out. I understand it from Askarov's perspective. Nashville drafted him 11th overall. Goalies do not typically go in the first round. And I think that year too I think Wallstead went to Minnesota as well. But 11th, that's one pick away from a top 10 pick on a goalie. That does not happen. I think the last one was Spencer Knight at 10, something like that. So and he's been killing it in the AHL. He's every level he's been at. He's looking as good as his draft slot, if not better. I still understand. I still get that goalies are voodoo no matter what. But it was the idea that Nashville was going to go through some kind of a rebuild. They had their goalie they were going to, recharge with, and they just kept winning. And Saros, they just locked him up. So yeah, I get it. He's I'm kind of ready for the NHL here, and you just signed your guy long. Was it 8 years, Saros? I don't know if it was that long, but I know it was a big contract. I'm going to try to look it up real quick.
Yeah, it was enough for him to be like, where do I fit here?
Which is exactly what happened with Bob when we had to bring in Briz because of things. What's his contract? So, like, I get it. So I'm not going to hate on the kid because of that. So based on how good he is, based on us losing Hart, and as much as I like 8 years, yeah, and the whole contract is 7.7, over 7.7 per year. Like 8 years. Come on. I understand why he wants out. So yeah, you kick the tires. I love Urson. I agree with you, Fedotov. I like Kolosov. We'll see what happens there, I guess. But even the other two guys here, I always say his name wrong. Bjarnason, that's it. Damn it. Bjarnason and the other Russian kid, who I'm just forgetting everybody's name today. But they have a great stockpile of goalies. But again, they're very far away. Askarov would be a top 2, 3 prospect in the organization. You know, I mean, and goalies are voodoo as it is. You can have a ton of great goalies and nobody works out. Why not? Why not? If you can afford the price, it could be a position of need. You don't know what you have. So I'm with you, Jim. I get the understanding they're not doing this, but you got to sniff around. You got to hang around, see what you can see what happens. The guy wants out, you know, as long as there's not a bidding war, you probably can get him for an attainable price. It really depends. And maybe at the deadline, the Flyers are out of it. Nashville's pushing. I don't know. Maybe you can send somebody their way. It's not going to be like a Scott Lawton, but you never know. They should definitely be in on it. Excuse me. And rebuilding teams do this. You're always adding young youth prospects. You're not blocking anybody. It's a competition at this point. You know, the cream rises to the top. That's how you get the best players. That's what they need to do. So, and these opportunities don't happen often. It's a goddamn shame it wasn't a center, you know, like, because if that happens, the Flyers would definitely jump all over that. Maybe they want to hold their ammunition, hoping something like that happens, besides somebody like Zegras, who has not requested a trade, by the way. So I understand that. So we'll see. Thank you. Damn, I got to write it down. But anyway, when he signed, Saros signed, I had a feeling this was coming. I just didn't know how or when. But officially requesting a trade, that's really pushing the envelope. So hey, we'll see what happens. But I don't think the Flyers are going to do anything.
For the sake of most of my dynasty teams, I hope he does get traded. Because when they signed Saros, I was like, okay, well,
yeah,
what the hell now? What now?
Yeah, dude, I know how you feel, man.
Okay, so speaking of rookies and prospects and goalies, the Flyers announced that they'll be playing the New York Rangers in their rookie games on September 13th and 14th in Allentown. And while they play the Rangers seemingly every year in Allentown, and fans want to go to these games, they're fun games to go to and watch some of these young prospects, this year might be just a little bit more exciting, Jack, as Matvei Michkov could be playing in these games, right?
Maybe both. He's definitely playing in one of them. Yes. I mean, this place, it's in Allentown, I believe, but I still think it's going to be packed. Like, just to get him on the ice in a Flyers jersey. I don't care who he's playing against, mites on ice for all I care. I just want to see him skate around. I really do. It's going to be great. I cannot wait. Of course, it's like 3.5 weeks away, but at least it's something to look forward to get the season rolling.
Yeah, for sure. And it will be fun. I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit worried, because some of these guys try to make a name for themselves. And if you can put a guy like Michkov on his ass, people start to ask, who is that guy? You know, so I know that Michkov will probably want to play in both. I'm thinking just get him in one, let him get a little taste, and let him get to camp nice and healthy. You don't need any of these. There are some guys out there, and you wouldn't think that, you know, guys would play like that in these rookie games. But thinking back to last year's rookie game, and the Rangers were playing extremely physical, and there were times borderline dirty. So with that in mind, I would err on the side of caution. Get him into one game, let him do his thing, and that's it. You know, let's get to the regular season here.
I'm not against that, because you got preseason too. So
should be an exciting weekend for sure to see Matvei Michkov play in Allentown with the Flyers, not the Phantoms, or else he might not come over. What else do we have, Jack? We're 44 minutes.
Well, I just wanted to bring up before I forget, those two, we had two offer sheets by the Blues.
That's fun.
with Edmonton, and they went official today. They did not match. Both of those players, Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, are now St. Louis Blues. The Oilers will receive a second and third round pick. Like, was the last? I mean, my understanding is that Armstrong, the GM for the Blues, is gonna be out of there soon, so he can burn bridges. Like, he's moving up to the top front office or something. Like, he's not gonna be GM anymore. So that's why they did it. But like, as look at it for the Blues, they got. You might want to say they're overpaid. Well, they had to do that to get the players, but not bad at it. Edmonton just out 2 players like that. Like, I thought that Edmonton might, out of spite, just, what's the word? Like, they were making moves before that. Like, who they just traded Ceci somewhere, right? Cody Ceci got moved somewhere, trading money off the books. You were thinking to maybe something they tried to, and at the end they couldn't do it. I thought they were going to match just out of spite, even though, I don't know how they feel about those players. Nothing really. I'm not crazy about either one of them. But Broberg was a former first round pick. I think Holloway was too, actually. Yeah. So they're both former first round picks. So, I mean, how often do you see that not get matched like that? And there's no like deal set in place or any shenanigans, just a flat out offer sheet, not matched. Boom. I cannot tell you the last time I saw something like that.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm pro that stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff. I think they overpaid for Broberg just a tad.
But again, so Edmonton wouldn't match. It's the only, and I like how each one was the maximum amount you could offer, like another $1, and it would be a first round pick compensation for Broberg. And the same with Holloway, it'd be a second. So the idea is I think they're 2-year deals. And then you would assume if things work out when they go to renegotiate in 2 years, it's in good faith. Look, we ever paid you the first time, so let's play ball here.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that's could be. I mean, that would make sense. But yeah, that's fun stuff. And there was another trade, or there was a trade yesterday. Patrick Laine is heading to Montreal.
There you go. Finally, we just couldn't cut that money in time, right? I don't think it was nearly enough, but Montreal's got their highest paid player, and it cost them what, Jim?
Jordan Harris.
Ooh.
And they got a second round pick with Laine.
Yeah.
I guess to completely clear the $8.7 million AAV off Columbus's books, which is a lot of money. And Laine hasn't played a full season in quite a while, at least not his entire tenure in Columbus. I will say this, Jack. If he didn't like playing in Columbus and he had the mental stuff going on, and I don't say that in any derogatory way, because anxiety and depression, whatever, things like that they're real things. I'm wondering how he's going to fare in Montreal, where they actually care about hockey and are fanatical about hockey, sometimes to a fault. This is nothing negative about Montreal fans, because Philadelphia is the same way in terms like that, where the fans can be pretty tough on players. So I'm wondering how he's going to do up there. On paper, the team looks great. The top 9 looks phenomenal. They're pretty loaded, and that's even without Ivan Demidov on the roster. Montreal's going to have a pretty tough squad, but I do wonder how things are going to go with Laine long term. I'm sure they'll start out great, but once he starts to, because he's a goal scorer, when goal scorers are streaky, when he starts to get a little streaky, when does that honeymoon end and how does it go?
All I know is the GM up there in Montreal is already the greatest of all time. He's amazing.
Told him to make him a statue.
Just wow.
They're already erecting it up there for sure.
Wow. He's so great. So great. Kent Hughes. That's his name. Kent Hughes. Oh, my God.
Fellow Baldy. Knows what he's doing. Has a plan, and he's putting it in place.
I know. In all seriousness, yes. He's just skipping on Michkov is obviously his biggest mistake. They'll stick with him forever. Don't tell a Montreal fan that. But hey, no. Other than that, they have a nice squad up there. They have a lot of good forwards. They got some defensemen coming. At least 2 I can think of. They got Hudson, and there is another one that I can't think of. But then, of course, what's the name they drafted in front of Michkov? Ryan Bacher, thank you. So, yeah, no, they got a good squad up there. I don't know how I feel about Caden Primo, but we'll see.
Yeah, they're definitely building something. So it was fun. It was a fun day, fun week. For Flyers fans, maybe not so much, but Hockey season is just around the corner, under a month away at this point for the rookie games. We can start counting down. Make sure you guys get your tickets. We'll be there up in the media section. So pretty cool. We're excited to watch Michkov, Logan Mailloux, and Ryan Bacher. So Montreal's nice. They got something cooking up there. They're gonna be fun. Remember, they gave the Flyers an ass whooping towards the end of the year. So we'll see. It's gonna be a fun year. Montreal's gonna be good for a very long time. All right, Jack, anything before we wrap up this special Tuesday afternoon episode of HW Hockey?
Just two quick things. One, did you know that TK is a top 20 winger in hockey?
Superstar, man.
Yeah, he's number 20, but hey, 8.75 for 8 years. He's a top 20 winger. How about that? Did you see that list?
I didn't see the entire list, but I saw TK was on there.
I really didn't have much of a problem with the whole list. There's a couple players you can argue should be on there, like Jesper Bratt, things like that. But Ovechkin was 19, and people are like, "Come on!" It's like, look, the guy is going to break. He's the greatest goal scorer of all time. He probably would have already broken Gretzky's record if I think his very first year there was the lockout, the year-long lockout. He had the half lock. I mean, he could already be there, and he's going to get there. So he's going to be on that list till he retires. It is what it is. But other than that, whatever. TK's on there. Hey, sky's the limit, baby.
Yeah.
Michkov's going to be number 1 going into next year. You'll see. But my very last thing, Jim, and this is a good omen. I know it's a good omen, okay? Remember we were opening those hockey packs for a little while? We were showing the cards and whatnot?
Yeah.
Well, I found 2 unopened ones. I got one card I like. That is a rookie portrait of Jamie Drysdale, baby. Wow. That is a good omen right there. He's going to have a nice season this year. All you haters, I was kind of one of them. But now I'm not, because that makes this worth money. No, but seriously, it was a nice little find there. But I think it's a good omen, Comes in healthy, proper defensive coaches. He is vital to this team's success when you think about it, and making us forget all about Gauthier. So I will definitely take that as a good omen, and we'll see what happens.
Definitely looking forward to watching a healthy Jamie Drysdale next season for the Flyers. So, yeah, I think that's going to do it for our episode, boys and girls. Thanks for everyone who hung out in the chat. Eric Schmidt, Explicit, Sturdy, Snickers. There's way too many to name here, guys. I really appreciate you hanging out on a Tuesday afternoon. We changed our podcast slot for this week. We'll be back next week with more Flyers talk. Maybe we'll even have a resolution to the Alexei Kolosov situation. James Bond Flyers. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's going to do it for this week, guys. We'll talk to you next week, and everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Get outside. It's like fall outside.
I know. It's great this morning. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Good night for a Phillies game.
Yes, sir.
All right.